This short video clip will explain and show the work that I'm trying to do with my model aggregation for the applying a human factors analysis classification system taxonomy to sport diving incidents. But the main three areas looking at individual, supervisory and the organisational layers, and also an additional one which I've put in as peer community influences. There's a number of papers out there which have looked at causality factors within sport diving, and I reviewed them here in this setup. There are a few more that I need to go through, but these have brought a broad range of factors which influence diving safety. So looking at the individual layer, we've got active and latent failures broken down into violations and errors, which again there are subsets. Violations becomes a bit of a challenge trying to identify where they sit with its routine, exceptional, operational violations, because a lot of it is context driven, and a lot of the incident data doesn't show why or what the context is, and therefore a number of factors that are here, it's difficult to determine where they sit. Errors themselves, there are a number of perception errors. It's a potentially alien environment. We can misjudge or misread signals visually or pressure-wise and make errors accordingly. Looking at decision errors, this is based on knowledge and the environment you're in, so errors in judgment, experience, or dive plan deviations. We look at rule-based errors. Diving is a recreational activity with guidelines, although some would say there are some rules, but these are some of the factors that have influenced here. Knowledge base, again, it's difficult to understand whether or not it's a knowledge base error or a skills based or a rules based, depending on the knowledge of the diver themselves. Skill based, this is where the majority of the error factors sit. Each one of these colours relates to the papers at the top. So these are all the areas that the diver does to set themselves up. Now we'll look at or the actual active failure. Now we'll look at the latent failures, the conditions of the operator, the mental state, tasks fixated, inattention, anxiety, panic. The dark green ones are the social influences that were referred to above. Physiological state, poor physical fitness, nitrogen loading, the environment that we're in, age of the diver, and a lot of these have come out, and it's difficult to determine whether or not where they sit within this factor or these categories. Physical and mental limitations, lack of physical fitness to recover themselves or another diver. We look at personnel factors, personal readiness. Were you ready to do it? Insufficient training comes up quite a lot here, or inadequate training. But inadequate training could also be part of the supervisory or the organisational influences where the training was not delivered correctly. Crew resource management, communicating a problem or communicating an issue beforehand. Failure of leadership could also be failure of supervision. And environmental factors. This social environmental influence comes from, as I say, an Alaskan general aviation paper where looked at the pressures on the crew to conduct operations which are not ideal, and a bit of pressuritis. And there are a number of different pressures being placed, and taking this on board because I believe that the same sort of pressures sit within sport diving. Look at the technical environment, the standards, and how the technical environment is controlled. And then we look at the physical environment, the in-water environment, surface conditions, in-water depth, natural hazards. If I now move over to the supervisory area, I've broken this into inadequate formal supervision and inadequate informal supervision, because I believe that within a training environment or a club structure where there is a recognised hierarchy, there is a formal supervisory layout. but in the majority of sport diving, that can be an informal supervision or peer review of what goes on, the buddy diving that's going on. Supervisory violations, it'll be alright, or trust me dives, or planned inappropriate operations, not necessarily clearing what's above. And it's difficult to understand again without the context as to whether or not it's lack of knowledge, lack of skills, or it's a violation. Moving over to the organisational area, this is the least or most poorly populated area from the factors from the research above, because this isn't something that is captured in the current reporting as to where the failures sit. We don't have in-depth investigation of incidents looking at these higher levels. But equipment, facility, resource, not equipment to go around, not enough staff to go around. And then finally, the peer community influences, I think, are linked to the environmental factors that we were talking about earlier of social environment. Incorrect peer feedback or guidance, incorrect information, and what's the climate, the safety climate or the culture within that peer community. Hopefully this will provide you an outline of what I'm trying to do with creating a model and also the challenges faced in trying to segregate or categorise some of those influences and factors into a recognised model.